Hey, Shalom, this is YAHAWAH. We're going to have a class today. We're going to go into the book of Genesis and we're going to read some things and get some understanding. A lot of you right now are going through some difficult times. These times, of course, we're at the end times. Y'all already know that. But the pestilences that we are seeing, it's all part of the scriptures, all part of prophecy. Our family went through this when we were in Egypt during the times of Moses, and we're going through it again. The first three plagues touched all of our people. And the same thing now. If somebody were to ask me, where are we in the scriptures? I would tell them Revelation 13, because everything in Revelation 13 has already taken part through history. So where we will be in Revelation 13 will be about verse 16, where it says, "And he causes all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads, and that no man might buy or sell save he that had the mark, or the name of the beast, or the number of his name." Here is wisdom. All right, so everything in this chapter has already happened except for this. This is where we are. All right, are you going to take the mark? Is it your mindset that you believe in everything in this world is true? Meaning that you follow another guardian? Or are you ready for the chip that's coming? Because there will be something implemented that's going to cause everyone to have to buy and sell. And it will be implemented to bring forth the New World Order. So we all have to prepare our minds for that. But if you were to ask me where we are, I would tell you there. If you were to ask me again, where are we in the scriptures? I would take you to 2nd Ezra. 2nd Ezra where? 2nd Ezra chapter 13, verse 49. And it says, "Now when he destroyed the multitude of the nations that are gathered together, he shall defend his people that remain." This is where we are too. The Most High is our defender. He's not everyone else's defender. He's our defender. All those who believe in him, but the Israelites are who he's going to defend. Remember what the scripture said in Zephaniah, that every man would grab a coattail of an Israelite. This is where we're going. If you were to ask me where we are right now, I would tell you Wisdom of Solomon chapter 5. I'm not going to even read that. You can read that for yourself. Another chapter in Wisdom of Solomon I will read. I would tell you we will land right around Wisdom of Solomon chapter 2. Wisdom of Solomon is in the Apocrypha. When you read Wisdom of Solomon chapter 2, I would tell you we are probably around verse 21. "Such things they did imagine and were deceived, for their own wickedness have blinded them." The times that we are in right now, everybody's in their homes. The wickedness going on inside these homes, I couldn't even imagine. You got people who work 9 to 5 or even lots of overtime purposely not to be at home with their wives or purposely not to be at home with their husbands so they can do all the evil they want. Right now, a lot of you people are inside these homes trying to hide your text messages from your significant others, right? You're trying to hide your phone calls from your significant others or your girlfriends or your boyfriends, that you got out there that is not right. The children can't get away with things that they once could get away with. And so it's a lot of misery in these homes. A lot of people don't like each other that are living together. All right. So this is a time for us to make amends. This is a time for us to repent. This is a time to reach out to your family members and tell them you love them. This is a time to teach the Gospels. This is a time to warn people, hey, this is what the scripture said. Are you ready? So yeah. And the pestilence will touch us just like it touched our people during the time of Moses. When you read Wisdom of Solomon chapter 3, I could go on and on and on with this, but this is not the topic of discussion today. We're going to get into something else because you should have already known this. We've been teaching for years. We've been out there on the streets teaching for years. I'm sure brothers and sisters out there saying, where they at? How come we ain't seen them? We're looking for them. We need answers. This is that time we told you about. The name is chapter 8 and 11. Let's go to Wisdom of Solomon chapter 3. "But the souls of the righteous are in the hand of the Most High, and there shall no torment touch them." You hear that? "In the sight of the unwise, they seem to die, and their departure is taken for misery." So a lot of brothers out there will be a part of this pestilence. And a lot of people will be like, good, that's what he get. He thought he was a prophet. Oh, good, that's what he get. He thought he was a servant of the Most High. They're going to be saying that. But not knowing, let's read verse 3, and they're going from us to be utter destruction, but they are in peace. For though they be punished in the sight of men, yet is their hope full of immortality. And having been a little chastised, they shall be greatly rewarded. For the Most High proved them and found them worthy for himself. You see that? So a lot of people don't understand that. They're like, oh, you can't go to Passover this year because of coronavirus. You know, it may not be a lot of brothers getting together because of fear and really the safety of others not to really get together during these times. You know, I'm not trying to stop anything, but if you do, be cautious. I pray that you brothers have faith. That's the biggest thing. A lot of brothers get together in these Passovers and these feast days and don't have faith. They just want to gather. So this is really going to come down to how deep is your faith? How diligent are you? How sincere are you? That's what it's coming down to. What do you really believe? All right, because the dress code is one thing, but is your mind in order? The baptism is one thing, but is your mind in order? All right. So, with that being said, let's get into the scriptures because I love the scriptures. And when we talk about the scriptures, we need to know that the Most High is going to redeem us from the hands of the wicked. Let's go to Colossians chapter 3, verse 17. Colossians chapter 3, verse 17. And whatsoever you do in word or deed, do all by Hashem HaMashiach YAHAWAH, giving thanks to the Heavenly Father by Him. All praises to the Heavenly Father all day, every day. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. So we want to talk about the flood today. We're going to talk about Genesis, right? Because what Noah went through is also similar to what we're going through today, being in the land of scoffers. So let's start off with Genesis chapter 2. And you notice when we read the scriptures in chapter 2, verse 4, it says, these are the generations of the heavens and of the earth. When it says generations, it's talking about families. So when you read this book, it's the book of families. The book of families of the Israelites. All right. Genesis 2 and 4. When they were created, in the day that the Most High, thy power, made the earth and the heavens, and every plant of the field before it was in the earth, and every herb of the field before it grew. But the Most High, thy power, had not caused it to rain upon the earth. And there was not a man to till the ground. So there was no rain. People never seen rain during the times of Noah. All right, I want you to get that right. There was no rain. But there went up a mist from the earth and watered the whole face of the ground. So there was a mist that went up. So this goes right back to Genesis chapter 1. What we have here before us is that the Most High was, during chapter 1, he was creating a home for man. This is what we have. The Most High created an inorganic earth into an organic, which is life. Okay, that's what the organic is. He created animal life as well. Plant life was already here. Think about that. Before man, it was here. Before the sun and the moon, it was here. Let's go to Genesis chapter 1, verse 9. And the Most High said, let the waters under the heaven be gathered together unto one place, and let the dry land appear, and it was so. And the Most High, thy power, called the dry land earth, and the gathering of the waters called he seas. And the Most High saw that it was good. And the Most High said, let the earth bring forth grass, the herb yielding seed, and the fruit tree yielding fruit after his kind, whose seed is in itself upon the earth. And it was so. And the earth brought forth grass and herb yielding seed after his kind, and the tree yielding fruit, whose seed was in itself after his kind. And the Most High saw that it was good. So this was the third day. There wasn't no rain in the third day. All he did was separate the waters. So for 1,000 years, remember, one day with the Most High is 1,000 years. So on the third day, 1,000 years on the third day, there was plants and grass, and there was no rain. And the earth brought forth grass and herb yielding seed after his kind, and the tree yielding fruit whose seed was in itself after his kind. And the Most High saw it was good, and the evening and the morning were the third day. See? And the Most High said, let there be lights in the firmament of heaven to divide the day from the night, and let them be signs and for seasons and for days and years. Recognize what we just said. Let them be for signs and for seasons. We're going to revisit that. And let them be for lights in the firmament of the heaven, to give light upon the earth. And it was so. And the Most High made two great lights, the greater light to rule the day, and the lesser light to rule the night. He made the stars also. So are you recognizing that he created grass and herbs and seas before he made the sun, stars, and the moon? Stars wasn't even here. I want you brothers and sisters to understand this. So when the Most High created all these things, it leaves very little room for evolution, because he talks about man being created on the what day? On the sixth day, after he created the cattle. When we jump down to verse 2 and 7, let's go there. Verse 2 and 7, and the Most High, thy power, formed man of the dust of the ground, and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living soul. A living soul. See, the method of the creation of life, our bodies, are made up of maybe approximately, scientifically, 15 chemical elements. All these elements are in the ground. So if they took these elements of man and they boiled it down to nothing, and then they put it in a bowl for us, it would probably be worth about $2.15. But now the price of us is probably going up, so it's probably $3.38. So I just want y'all brothers to understand that our bodies ain't worth nothing. But what matters is our spirits. Our spirits, which the Most High created to live with him in heaven, is going to be renewed. That spirit is worth everything. Spirit is like worth gold. And the difference between us and animals is our spirits. We have speech. We have individuality. You know, it separates us from everything else that was created on earth. So we have to understand that when the Most High created us, he separated us and made us very distinctive, other than the angels. And we know very little about the makeup of angels. So this is very important to know when it comes to the scriptures. Ecclesiasticus chapter 17. I just want to show you that our speech is important. Let's go to Ecclesiastes chapter 17 in the Apocrypha, and let's start at verse 4. It says, and put the fear of man upon all flesh, and gave him dominion over beasts and fowls. They received the use of the 5 operations of the Most High. And in the 6th place, he imparted them understanding. And in the 7th, speech, an interpreter of the cogitations thereof. Counsel and a tongue, and eyes, ears, and a heart gave he them to understand. See that? So when you read this, it goes back into the scriptures when Paul was speaking about the use of languages, even speaking towards beasts. And the beast wasn't talking about animals, it was talking about men who act like beasts, right? And it ain't really necessarily talking about Esau either. Yeah, if you look in the book of 1 Corinthians chapter 14, he talks about uses of different languages and speaking of different tongues. And that's what it's talking about in the scriptures, that the Most High gave us speech in order to communicate and have understanding of things and to push forth his word. All right. In Genesis 2 and 7, it reads, "And the Most High, thy power formed man of the dust of the ground, and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living soul." So the earth was prepared for man. Man was taken out of the dust of the ground physically, and from dust we are, to dust will we return. But we was brought into a marvelous relationship with the Most High. Any form of evolution cannot account for human speech. It cannot account for consciousness, and it can't account for individualism. When it comes to evolution, of course, you gotta know that it's false. It's very easy to take the bones of a man and to compare it to the bones of anthropology, like an ape or a horse, or to take the bones of a lizard and compare it to a mouse. If you dug up the ground and pulled up bones from something that was 500 to 1,000 years ago, where creatures moved in the same vicinity as a man, you would find similarities. You would definitely find some kind of similarity where they look alike. Hell, you can't get a chases from a Ford automobile and say it's a Chevy automobile, because naturally they look the same. They have striking similarities, but you better not tell that to a local auto dealer or a Ford dealership, because they'll tell you that there's a wide difference between the two. When you look at vehicles, they gotta have what? 4 corners. You gotta have 4 wheels on each corner. They gotta balance on the chases. They gotta house the motor when they stuck on the freeway at 5 p.m. in the afternoon in traffic. But that doesn't mean that they don't come out of the same factory. Today, there has been so much imagination made about man. Man is a different creature, but he has received the breath of life, and he's become a living soul. Man has been marvelously and spiritually made by the Most High. This is what we fathom on when we read the scriptures. Let's go to Genesis 2 and 8. Genesis chapter 2, verse 8. "And the Most High, thy power, planted a garden eastward in Eden, and there he put the man whom he had formed." So this is part of the Fertile Crescent that we know of, that grew itself in East Africa. Okay, and it probably compassed all of that area, all the way out with the rivers in place. So can you imagine what it looked like? It had to be beautiful. Let's go to Genesis 2 and 9. Genesis 2 and 9 says, "And out of the ground made the Most High thy power to grow every tree that is pleasant to the sight and good for food, the tree of life also in the midst of the garden, and the tree of knowledge of good and evil." So all the trees the Most High made were functional in the Garden of Eden. Even to this day, when you look at trees, they're still functional. They still produce fruit, vegetables, right? Despite some of them having thorns and thistles, but most of the trees that the Most High created still are functional. Even if you took a seed and planted it in the ground, apple tree is going to produce apples. It's still beautiful. The Most High is great. But as trees, even though some of them look half dead, half alive, they are still beautiful to look at. When you go to a place like, I remember once I went to Hawaii, and I've never seen so much beautiful and wonderful foliage next to the ocean in my life. That place is absolutely beautiful. The Garden of Eden must have been a beautiful place like that, if not more beautiful. When I went to Ethiopia, it was the same thing. People think of Ethiopia being desolate. It is a beautiful country. Let's go to Genesis chapter 2 and verse 11. It reads, "The name of the first is Pison, that is it which compasseth the whole land of Havilah, where there is gold. And the gold of that land is good. There is Bdellium and the onyx stone. And the name of the second river is Gihon. The same is it that compasseth the whole land of Ethiopia." I've been to that country. Beautiful. And the name of the third, and that's got to be the Blue Nile that they have. They have a river called the Blue Nile. It's got to be one of those. And the name of the third river is Hiddekel. That is it, which goeth toward the east of Assyria. And the fourth river is Euphrates. So this was the Most High's finger doing all of these beautiful things. Let's read verse 15. And the Most High, thy power, took the man and put him into the Garden of Eden to dress it and to keep it. This was the Most High's becking call for Adam. And the Most High, thy power, commanded the man, saying, of every tree of the garden thou mayest freely eat, but of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil thou shalt not eat of it, for in the day that thou eatest thereof thou shalt surely die. Okay? So when he talks about he may freely eat of that tree, 2 Ezra chapter 2, verse 43. Let's go there real quick. Book of 2 Ezra chapter 2, verse 43. This is that tree in the midst of it. And in the midst of them there was a young man of high stature, taller than all the rest. And upon every one of their heads he set crowns, and was more exalted, which I marveled at greatly. Just like that tree. You gotta understand, trees are also people. All right? They're also people. Just like in the book of Revelation, where it talks about that the nations will eat the fruit off the trees of the 12 tribes every month. That's a whole nother class. Verse 17. But the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, thou shalt not eat of it, for in the day that thou eatest thereof, thou shalt surely die. This was the Most High's becking call too. Now, when he says thou shalt surely die, that wasn't the Most High's original intention for man to die. When you read the story, you know what happened. So it put us all on a form of probation. We're all on a form of probation now. So privileges, you have to remember, privileges always creates responsibility. We had all the privileges in the world. Adam had the privilege of everything in the garden. So like I said, privileges always creates responsibility. We ruin our privileges, now we have to prove our worth. We ruin our privileges, now we have to prove our worth. All right, and we recognize that Adam died. How old? How old was Adam when he died? So when we look at Genesis chapter 5, verse 5, it reads, in all the days that Adam lived were 930 years, and he died. So he lived to be 930 years old. So death means what? Death means separation. He was separated from the day he ate of it from the Most High. Nobody wants to be separated from the Most High. Adam went through a period of separation when the Most High put him out of the garden. Let's read Genesis 2 and 18. And the Most High, thy power, said, it is not good that the man should be alone. I will make him a helpmeet for him. And out of the ground, the Most High formed every beast of the field and every fowl of the air, and brought them unto Adam to see what he would call them. And whatsoever Adam called every living creature, that was the name thereof. And Adam gave names to all cattle, and to the fowl of the air, and to every beast of the field. But for Adam, there was not found an helpmeet for him. So we have to recognize that Adam had a brilliant mind on the earth. It didn't take him long to name these animals. It probably took him less than 5 seconds, 5 minutes. Just watched them. An elephant walked up, oh, I'm going to call you an elephant. A lion come up, oh, I'm going to call you a lion, just by the way you're roaring. And you got to understand the Hebrew alphabet, all is in likeness of the sound of these animals. Okay, so we have to understand that all these Hebrew letters that Adam used, because remember, everything was spoken in Hebrew then. So they all had to be used to explain what the animal was. Like we hear the Hebrew alphabets. A, ba, ga, da, ha, wa, za, ka, ta, ya, la, ma, na, sa, ah, pa, ta, sa, ka, right? So all of these words or these letters were symbols for the animals. They were names. What does a lion do? He roars. To say lion in the Hebrew, if you look at the ancient Hebrew, you would say araya, araya. So you look at the letter in the Hebrew, when you say ra, 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 it sounds like a lion roar. Araya, ra. All right. It's from the ancient Hebrew. This is how Adam named them based on how they sounded. If you listen to the way a cow or ox makes the noise, how do they say it? Moo, right? But Adam named them based on how an ox head is. He has horns on it, right? And so he named it Ba, Bawakawa. I haven't said it in a long time. Bawakawa. It's just like Bawakawa. So you use the ancient Hebrew language. Ba, meaning the head, the beginning. Let me give you an example. Let me see. It's somewhere in the scriptures. But even if you just go to Genesis, right? When you go to Genesis, how do you say Genesis in the ancient Hebrew? You say Genesis, right? But it's Barashath. The Ba means in the beginning. Ba means in the beginning. You say Ra'ash, that means the head. Ra'ash. So Barayath, the Yath is plural. So Barayath. Right? So when you say that, that's saying in the beginning. That's the head of or the chief of the book. And this is how you pronounce the ox. So everything was related to the ancient Hebrew language. Every animal's language or the reactions or the way that they acted was how Adam named them all. So it was quick. He just saw them and named them. For example, let's go to the book of Job real quick. Let's go to Job chapter 40, verse 15. In Job chapter 40, verse 15, this is one of the animals Adam named. It says, "Behold now, Behemoth, which I made with thee. He eateth grass as an ox." Behemoth. Now, how would you say behemoth in the ancient Hebrew language? It would be Ba-ha-ma'ath. Ba-ha-ma'ath. It means mute or beast or large quadruple. That's what it means. Bahamath. Ba, chief. Y'all know what that is now. Ba means chief or the head. Ha, when you say ha, that's talking about what? Of. We say ha, just like when you say Rosh Hashanah, right? When you say Rosh Hashanah, what does that mean? The head of the year, right? Or head of the month. So when you say Baha, it means chief of what? Chief of beasts. Behemoth, chief of beasts, chief of large quadruple horse, or Nile horse, or ox, or hippopotamus. He's the chief beast. That's what it means, Behemoth. So when we go back to Job chapter 40, verse 15, it says, "Behold now Behemoth, which I made with thee, he eateth grass as an ox. Lo, now his strength is in his loins, and his force is in the navel of his belly." A lot of y'all saying, now what is this? What is it? Is it a form of cattle? All right. Remember, the Most High made reptiles too. When you read Genesis chapter 1 and chapter 2, he doesn't say reptiles. That's a new name. Even though they're in their own category, the Most High called them cattle. Just like we just went over about his name. He's the chief beast. So I'm going to give you a little skit on what he looks like. Y'all remember Fred Flintstone? Remember when Fred Flintstone was at work, he sat up on a huge animal. What they would call it now, today, they would call it a brontosaurus. A brontosaurus. Dino was a baby brontosaurus. So this is Behemoth. He's a reptile. I'm going to tell you why he's a reptile. He looks like a reptile. He looks like an alligator, right? If he's a reptile, I'm going to tell you one thing about reptiles that a lot of brothers and sisters don't know. This is how you know that dinosaurs existed during the times of Adam and not before. Because Adam named everything. Everything. So they couldn't be before Adam. If they were before, yeah, that first 1,000 years, he created the cattle and everything. But when Adam came, he named everything. So that included the so-called, what we call dinosaurs today. In the Bible, they call them dragons. That's what's the name. Dinosaur came around the time of King James. That's when that name changed. When King James was in existence, that's the word they used in the Bible, dinosaur. But it was dragons prior to that. In verse 17, he moveth his tail like a cedar. A cedar is like a cedar tree, a long, tall cedar tree. They're very tall and huge, kind of like the redwoods. The sinews of his stones are wrapped together. His bones are as strong pieces of brass. His bones are like bars of iron. You ever see a brontosaurus? See how big they are. Their bones are huge. He is the chief of the ways of the Most High. Just like his name. His name is Behemoth. Or Behemoth. He that made him can make his sword to approach unto him. He's not going to move. You come at him with your sword, he ain't about to be running. That's how big he is. He's not afraid of anything. Surely the mountains bring him forth food, where all the beasts of the field play. So now you know his habitation. He lieth under the shady trees in the covert of the reed and fen. So he's strategically placed in a certain place in a swamp, right? Right around the shady trees in his covert of the reed and the fens. I'm going to show you, give you a picture. There it is. The shady trees cover him with their shadow. The willows of the brook compass him about. So that lets you know that he's a water beast. But he's on the earth. Because remember when we read 2nd Ezra chapter, was that chapter 6? We're going to come back to this. Let's go to 2nd Ezra chapter 6. Let's go to 2nd Ezra chapter 6. And let's go to verse 47. It says, upon the 5th day thou settest unto the 7th part, where the waters were gathered, that it should bring forth living creatures, fowls and fishes, and so it came to pass. Remember, Adam was created on the 6th day. The animals were created on the 5th day. So they were just running wild. But they knew the habitation. For the dumb water and without life brought forth living things at the commandment of the Most High, that all people might praise the wondrous works. Then didst thou ordain 2 living creatures, the one thou calledest Enoch, and the other Leviathan. So who is Enoch? This is his other name. Behemoth is also known as Enoch. Leviathan dwells in the waters. This is, and did separate the one from the other, for the 7th part, namely, where the water was gathered together, might not hold them both. So it's just telling you that they both love water. Leviathan lives in water, and also Behemoth. Unto Enoch thou gavest 1 part, which was dried up, the 3rd day, that he should dwell in the same part wherein are 1,000 hills. He's telling you where he lives, where 1,000 hills are, in the mountain ranges. But unto Leviathan thou gavest the 7th part, namely the moist, and it has kept him to be devoured of whom thou wilt, and when. So this happened all before. Look at this. Upon the 6th day thou gavest commandment unto the earth, that before thee it should bring forth beasts, cattle, and exceeding things. And after these Adam also, whom thou madest Lord of all the creatures, of him come we all, and the people also whom thou hast chosen, which was Jacob. Right? The Israelites came out of Jacob. So now you know who Enoch is, and you know who Leviathan is, and stories have been created of these 2 great beasts. Let's go back to Job, and let's go to chapter 40, verse 20. It reads, surely the mountains bring him forth food, where all the beasts of the field play. All right, so now you know where he's at, around 1,000 hills. He lieth under the shady trees in the covert of the reed and fens. The shady trees cover him with their shadow. The willows of the brook compass him about. Behold, he drinketh up a river, and hasteth not. He trusteth that he can draw up Jordan into his mouth. He's not afraid to sit there and just drink and drink and drink. You ever see horses drink out of a river, or deers? Y'all should, I know y'all seen it, because National Geographic shows a lot of this in the Sahara Desert of Africa. When there's water, all the beasts of the field come to drink, even the lions. Everything's there. He taketh it with his eyes. His nose pierceth through his snares. All right, you can see him looking at the water, just blowing air out his nose while he drinking. This is Behemoth. This is not a hippopotamus. Just so you know, this is not a hippopotamus. Hippopotamus got a little bitty tail. Behemoth got a long tail and also a long neck. There's a book. All right, so this is Behemoth. Behemoth is a reptile, what we would categorize as a reptile. Even though he falls under the category of cattle or beasts, he's still a reptile. And the reason why we know he's a reptile, because reptiles do not stop growing. Man stops growing. Regular animals stop growing. Lions, tigers, bears, they stop growing. But reptiles continue to grow as long as they live. Now, you got to understand that Adam lived to be 930 years old. So if Adam lived to be 930 years old, that means that there's a sequence going on. When the Most High took his spirit away from man to dwell so long on earth, he dropped it from that down to 120, down to 70 years, 70. So now there's actually 3 drops. So a lot of people ask the question, well, how did he live to be so long? It's simple. It's the moisture in the air. With moisture, you live longer. Within the moisture is oxygen. The Most High created this earth to be an oxygenated planet. You see some of these sports or athletic divisions, they'll have a hyperbaric chamber for people to heal themselves quicker, because all it does is flood oxygen into the body, and it helps the organs or the muscles mature and grow and be stronger. Now, it's a theory to a lot of the scientists and doctors, but the Most High got it right. He knows how to fix it. So in those days, there was a lot more water in the earth, a lot more oxygen in the earth. He tells us in Psalms chapter 136 and 6. Let's go there real quick. In the book of Psalms, chapter 136, verse 6, to him that stretched out the earth alone above the waters, for his mercy endureth forever. So the Most High is telling us that his waters are stretched beneath the earth. All beneath the earth, you got waters that come up through the earth and keep the earth oxygenated. This is how that mist went out, to keep the earth oxygenated. Okay, also above the earth, the Most High has set what? Waters above the earth. Remember, he separated the waters from the heavens and the earth. Genesis chapter 1 and 6. Let's look at it real quick. In the book of Genesis chapter 1, verse 6, it reads, and the Most High said, let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters. What do you think that firmament is? A division of waters. And let it divide the waters from the waters. So you have waters above the earth and you have waters beneath the earth. So the whole atmosphere is filled with water, precipitation, mist all over. So the oxygen that was feeding our bodies allowed us to live longer and stronger, and it kept us moist. They tell you now, when you get sick, what do they tell you? To hydrate yourself. We don't drink enough water, nor do we retain enough water. And the spring water that we think is spring water doesn't do enough for us. We have purified water. We have distilled water. Distilled water is just water that don't have elements in it. But when it runs over the earth, you have what? Spring water. So the water that we're rejuvenating ourselves with is not enough. It's not enough for our bodies, believe it or not. If you drank real water, you would drink and drink and drink and drink because you wouldn't get full drinking the water that you drink. The contaminated water fills you up. So we have to understand that that's the time that Adam lived in. And so all the Most High did was just extract the waters from the earth. And man started to die earlier. That's all. And the Most High could tweak your organs. That's all he got to do is do a little tweak. He could tweak that little age component in your body. That's all he got to do. So now we have the animal cycles also in their age has also shrinked. And theirs is supposed to be less than man. So if Adam was living to be 930 years old before, what do you think the reptiles were doing if they never stopped growing? They got bigger and bigger and bigger. This is where we have Behemoth. He was the largest that was created of the Most High, YAHAWAH. So Behemoth just kept growing. He was the chief beast. Same thing with squid, octopuses. They keep growing. They never stop growing. They get larger and larger. Now, that curse that came upon the earth affected everyone with nostrils that walked and breathed upon the dry land. Now, Behemoth goes in between the waters and the land, just like Leviathan is in the waters. But Behemoth goes back and forth. He's considered an amphibian. Turtles are like that too. That's why they live so long. Turtles can live up to 300, 400, 500 years old. You look at whales, things of that type, live 300, 400, 500. It may be longer than that, all I know. But things under the waters live longer. And so we have to understand that. And so with that, Behemoth is on the earth and is still large in size, but he may not be as large as he was back in those days. In Africa, there's an area called the Congo. Now, the Congo is as big as the Amazon, if not bigger. When you look at the United States, the Congo takes up, it spans from the edge of the East Coast all the way to the Midwest. So all of those states where the 13 colonies was formed all the way up until the west mid states, like around Texas, that's how big the Congo is. It's all marshland. The whole country is marshland, and the only ones who can navigate through that land is the pygmy Africans, little short muscle-bound men. They navigate through that land like it's nothing. But for the rest of the world have not truly penetrated through that Congo. That's why you don't see a lot of things on National Geographics. Now, a lot of the Congolese were destroyed by the Belgians. They came to bring them peace, and they slew them all, killed most of the Congolese back in those days. Well, those babies that grew up to be pygmy Africans are now Congolese. They dwell in that land, and they understand the history of the Belgian people coming there and taking over things that they had, like gold, diamonds, and so forth. Same thing they do all over the earth. No difference. Amazon is the same way. So now in this land, you have Behemoth still living. And we're going to go into some articles. I'm going to show you some things that prove that these behemoths are still living. It's just like when you look at alligators, 50-foot alligators that are in the Amazon, or 50-foot snakes in the Amazon. They do exist. Everyone knows they exist. So this is what you have in the Amazon. This is what you have in the Amazon, even eating people in the Amazon. So the Congo is even bigger. There's a place in the Amazon River. They have another river. I forget the name of the river, but it's 9 miles wide. Every soul in the world could drown themselves in that river. It's so big. No telling what other type of beasts are in that river. What's interesting is even Dr. Seuss says millions of years ago, dinosaurs were created on the earth. So a lot of people will agree with Dr. Seuss, and they will agree with the textbooks, and you will agree with everything that you see in front of you, other than the truth. The truth will set you free. The Bible says that Behemoth lives under the shady trees and the fens. The fens is another word for swamp. So that would tell you where he's at. He's in the Congo, in the swamps, or the Amazon even. So if he lives in the swamps, he had to live in the largest part of Africa, which is in the Congo, in the swamps. It's 55,000 square miles, and no one has penetrated it. Back in the 1700s, before the Belgians went in there, the missionaries went in there, and they saw a large beast living in the Congo. They described it as being a dinosaur, or looking like a dinosaur. Prior to that, in 1948, there was a big game hunter, Mr. Gobbler, who went in there, and he wrote in the newspaper that he saw something describing to himself as being a large animal that fit the description of a dinosaur. In 1980, there was a bunch of hunters who went into the Congo, and they hit the swamp, and about 1,000 mosquitoes per minute were all over them. And not only that, they had to deal with the rats, the snakes, and all the other critters that were in there. So this is one of the problems where a lot of people cannot penetrate the Congo. That's why I said only 20% of the Congo has been penetrated. And everyone who goes into the Congo see animals that look like they're dinosaurs. And they come back saying the dinosaurs are still here. No one seems to write it down. No one wants it to exist. Mokele Mikimbe. Have you guys ever heard of that? Mokele Mikimbe is Behemoth. There was a European doctor that came down. His name was Dr. Mackel. He said, "What is a Mokele Mikimbe?" And so one of the natives drew it on a piece of paper, and the doctor said, "Well, these type of animals have been dead for 70 million years." And they said, "Oh, really? We didn't know that." They said, "Well, we see this all the time down there in the swamp, in the Congo." And he couldn't believe it. So apparently, these animals, they still live. You know, you can go for years not seeing any kind of animals. If you live in Texas, you may not ever see a black panther. You may not never, if you live in California, you may never see a coyote. You know, certain parts of the country, you may not never see certain animals, and they live right there amongst you. Bears in certain areas, you may never run into a bear if you live in Oregon. And it's the same thing with these natives. They hardly see them, but they know for a fact that they exist. They said they've seen a few of them. He also, Mokele Mikimbe, also has a favorite fruit. It's called the malumbo plant. And so just like we saw in the scriptures how he loved to eat certain plants, you know, it's the same thing. It fits the description of the characteristic of a behemoth. This brother saw a behemoth, and he drew it, and he said, "This is what it looked like, something like this." This brother is a scientist, a biologist in the local area. World Story magazine from Chicago. Some guys from Los Angeles went in there and tried to take some pictures, but their cameras malfunctioned due to the humidity. That happened to me when I went to Ethiopia. We went into these mountains. It's supposed to be called the Roof of Africa. They had all these different birds and things like that up in the top of these mountains, and my camera malfunctioned due to the humidity. So I understand that. Well, these guys who went there to the Congo said that the creature was brownish in color. The skin appeared sticky and smooth, with a long neck and small head. I know some brothers that look like that, to be honest. But they said on certain occasions it made a loud, tremendous roar. They said even government officials saw it and heard it. Oh, there you have it. There's a lot of eyewitnesses who have saw this thing. Here's an article from the Boston newspaper about a group that went looking for the half god, half beast. Behemoth. There's been about 30 expeditions and more looking for the animals. The natives claim that they live in caves along the side of the rivers, and they're more active at night, and they stay under the water, which makes it even tougher to see them. So these things are very smart. The Behemoth and Leviathan are both very smart. They've even chased alligators and hippopotamus away, which is crazy. Here's the article where they were chasing hippopotamus and alligators and even elephants out. They appear to be more of a territorial type of animal whenever it comes to dealing with his food supply. But this is an article from a so-called white man who claimed that he was the first Edomite or white man to penetrate the rainforest. Of course, they got to take all the blame. So here you go. Welcome to look at this article. There's also sightings of these animals in the Amazon. And the ones that they see in the Amazon have platelets on their back. A little different from the ones in Congo, but the same creature. Down in Bolivia, they killed this one behemoth. They shot him 36 times before he died on the Beni beach. All right. And when they got him, they thought that he wasn't a monster, but he was part of some strange species. What we have here, I'm about to show you. Now I'm going to show you a snake, an overgrown snake that grown to be 67 feet. He had actually swallowed a man. When they cut him open, the man said, "Boy, this is a big snake." And the native looked at him and says, "Captain, you should see the big ones." You also have 98-foot long snakes down in South America. So to say all of that, just trying to prove to you that reptiles never stop growing. Also, the Most High says in the book of the Sefer that the Behemoth and Leviathan are going to show themselves in the last days. So here we are. We're starting to see Behemoths, and we're starting to reveal that the Leviathans are in existence. So what does that tell you?
This is the word of the Lord of hosts. I took you from the pastures and from following the sheep to be prince over my people Israel. I have been with you wherever you have gone and have destroyed all the enemies in your path. I will make you a great name among the great ones of the earth. I will assign a place for my people in Israel. There I will plant them, and they shall dwell in their own land.